Welcome, mindful performers. Cecil Buck's here. Today's topic is surrender. I will admit this topic is a challenge for me to discuss in depth, only because there's so much to this topic. There's so much to surrendering. There's so many connotations that we've picked up throughout our lives that keep us from even trying to surrender sometimes. And I think it's important to talk about surrender because it comes up a lot in the spiritual journey, that we should be surrendering to the greater good or to how life unfolds, and that the more we surrender, the easier things can become or things can be created. Why is it so hard? Well, multiple reasons, as I've said, so we'll get into it. I think the first reason is that by definition, surrender has been drilled into us as this negative thing, that we're yielding our own power to an enemy, right? So surrender typically is something that we hear about when there's war or when there's a battle or when there's a fight. The person that surrenders loses. And in the grand scheme of things, this is actually not correct. This is a whole nother topic in and of itself, but what I'll touch on is that in a battle, in a war, obviously this is not a high frequency act. These are not things that generate high frequencies. There's not a lot of love when two people are battling or there's a war going on. There's a lot of conflict. There's a lot of potentially death and harm and all of these things that if you surrender, you think, oh, there's more of that. And so I think that's one of the first reasons that surrender is so difficult for us. So one of the reasons that surrender is so difficult for us is that we associate it with giving up control, to losing a battle, to losing a war. And ultimately, there would be no war, right? There'd be no battle. However, in my mind, surrender is a higher frequency option than battling to the death. Man, this is a complex issue to even touch on. So I don't think I'll go too deep into war and all of those things. I'll just say that is one of the reasons why it's so difficult for us to surrender when we're creating our lives, or when we're doing meditation, or when we're trusting in the universe or God or a greater good. And what, of course, we're discussing in surrender is releasing an idea or control to a greater mind, to a greater influence in a positive way. And in the Surrender Experiment, Michael Singer, it's a book by Michael Singer, he actually talks about how throughout his entire life, he surrendered to what came before him. He knew the way he wanted his life to feel, and he knew that he wanted to always have time for yoga and for meditation, and he started buying land, and he just kept saying yes to whatever was before him. And he went from just wanting to be a yogi on a plot of land in a van doing his meditation and yoga twice a day, to leading a church, to building a construction company that did custom homes, to running a software company that had revenues in the millions and millions of dollars and is likely still in play today. So that is one way of surrendering. And all of that was created really without a lot of intention. His intention was very basic. His intention was, I want to feel connected. I want to be able to do my yoga twice a day. I want to be able to tune in and be present in every moment in my life and surrender to whatever life brings to me. Now, in Dr. Joe's work, what we are often doing is getting clear on an intention. And we have something that we want to create or change within our lives. And we get very clear on the intention, and then we raise up in meditation. We get very high in frequency. I won't go into all of that on this video, but if you've done Dr. Joe's work, you understand that that part of the meditation is actually raising your frequency higher and higher so that you're closer and closer to the universal force, to the life force that drives everything that we see unfold around us at the quantum level, at the material level. And we're then surrendering that intention to this field, to God, to this creative life force. And a lot of times it's hard for us to just release that and to not worry about when it's going to happen and to trust that it's going to happen. And so I think it's important to keep a few things in mind. This is what I think we need to do. Now, I want to say that I would love to hear from you on what does surrender mean to you and what are your experiences with surrender. But let me cover what I think is important when it comes to surrender, when it comes to creation and spiritual path. So one, we have to be very, very clear on our intention. What are we creating? What are we wanting to change? And we're crystal clear, or we're working on getting crystal clear on that intention. Next, we need to believe in the creative force that's within us, this divine, loving energy that pervades the entire universe that we live in, that keeps us breathing when we're not thinking about breathing, that keeps our heart beating, that keeps all of the cells healing and generating at just a mind-boggling scale within every single one of us, not just within you or me, but within 7 billion people on the planet. We need to realize, third, that surrendering completely means that we're not worried about when this change is coming or the creation is manifesting, that we are truly trusting in the divine energy, in God, to pull that into our lives. That the more we work on pushing for that goal, the further away we're pushing it. And that the more we're doing it matter to matter. And that the more we can release it, the more we can truly just forget about it. And I know this takes work, trust me. But the more we can do that, the quicker these things can come into our lives and the more enjoyable the creative process. That's the biggest thing for me, is if I'm worrying about it, number one, it's going to be pushed out and likely not come in the form that that would be ideal, or I'm forcing it, so it's not really that I'm manifesting it. But if I truly keep working on surrendering, and sometimes that's part of the process, that's part of the practice, that's part of the meditations, is figuring out how do you truly just let that go, just surrender it to the field, and then have the patience, have the belief and the faith in your creative power. And sometimes that's a process in and of itself. But when you get to that point where you're not worrying about how it's going to come, then man, it can get pretty creative and pretty fun and enjoyable, because you get to the state where you just know the things that you're creating are happening. They're already there. You placed your intention, your energy in the field, and so that's where it's at. And then to release that, to surrender it, and just trust. And it's not even trust, it's just this knowing, but it comes through practice. And then the fourth thing that I had written down that I wanted to make sure I mentioned was that, and I touched on this already, is that there will be times where we wonder, where is this item? Where is this life partner? Where is this money? Where are the things that I'm trying to manifest? What the heck do you mean surrender? You expect me to just release this and believe that it's just going to happen? And those are the moments where we have to get present, and we have to do open eyes meditation, and really just remember to release and to trust. And sometimes I say a prayer, sometimes I just say a blessing, sometimes I just say release and surrender that thought, surrender those doubts. And that's part of the practice as well. So I am very curious on your thoughts around surrender. I hope that this topic is beneficial, and I encourage you to share this with your network. Chime in on the comments. I would love to hear more from everyone around their experience with surrender. How do they surrender? Do they have any tips or tricks on surrendering completely? Because this is a big item, big area of challenge in my life. So I'm thinking that it probably is a challenge in many people's lives. Thank you for watching. Click like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I hope you have a great day.